Welcome back to Mostly Growth, the #1 podcast in product monetization. Today, we're going to talk about vertical SaaS, the surprisingly cool companies hiding in spaces that you would have never thought about. CJ, what is the most obscure yet successful vertical SaaS company you've heard of?
Dude, we could do 45 minutes of me just giving you obscure vertical SaaS companies if we want.
Let's do it.
Okay, I got one for you. It's called Rock Auto. It looks worse than Craigslist. I'll put it that way. This company does specialty auto parts.
What is that icon? All the parts your car will ever need. How many parts does my car need? This is giving me like GeoCities vibes.
It's got like purple in there, but it makes hundreds of millions of dollars a year. Anecdotally, I've heard that the owners each take home over $40 million a year in profit. So if you want to order a new muffler for your 2017 Subaru Impreza that impresses all the ladies.
It's 2019, actually.
Sorry, Ben.
I mean, there are riches and niches. A little birdie told me about a company called Skimmer. Have you heard of this one?
Yeah. Shout out to Tim.
Not Skims, Skimmer. Very different. So Skimmer's for pool cleaners.
It's an operating system, you could call it, for people who are independent pool cleaners. So, the boy who comes around and gets all the leaves out of your backyard. There are pool cleaners all over the US, highly fragmented, and they need something for scheduling and for billing their clients. And so it's a play on both the software, but also the payments aspect. Oh, wait, I got one more. Everybody needs an ERP, right?
Everyone does, but not everyone loves to buy one.
So there's a company called Epicor, and they're like the greatest kept secret in terms of back office software systems of record for any type of business that does warehousing. If you walk into like a distributor for auto parts, they're the ones who tell you which SKUs are on the shelves, which ones have been taken away, but they go so deep into niches. They have a product for companies that sell guns. They have a product for pet supplies companies. Basically any SKU-specific product that has to be stored in a way that takes up a different amount of space, they have a system for it. I'm just going to guess over $1 billion in revenue.
Reminds me, when you talk to Roland at House Call Pro, they're for like home services related trades, right? But the reality is there's like dozens of sub verticals. If you were to just say home services, well, there's HVAC and there's plumbing and there's electrical and there's landscape. Like there's all of these actually underlying businesses. And you often need to get to that hyper specific niche. And that's where you can both build like a really strong value proposition because you're building something that is the best thing for a particular customer. And then you can just build like a super high retention, super high market share business in these spaces.
A guy named Billy, who I went to BC with, he has a company that makes the front office software for dentists. So you go in to say, hey, I'm here for my appointment. I'm doing a tooth cleaning. I think it's called Pearly, which is an awesome name. But that's something that's highly specific to the way in which the work gets done. The billing part, too, is also highly specific because you may be going through insurance. And so if you think about the rest of the world that is not a tech company, the digital economy accounts for approximately 15% of global GDP. I remember talking to Dominic Phillips, the CFO of Samsara, which is Internet of Things for like construction and the trades. He's like, we serve 70% of global GDP. It's like, that's crazy if you think about it, because I was brought up in the world where it's just like tech selling to tech, but that's really not where all the riches are.
Yeah, I do think a lot of tech companies start off with an early adopter crowd. They know tech, they build products for their own experiences, then they go sell it to other early stage tech companies. Like this is kind of that YC trap. And so we don't hear as much about these companies that are in hyper specific spaces, but today's episode is going to go into these vertical software businesses, the opportunity that lives there, and what are the metrics for these businesses that really matter?
From Mostly Media, it's Mostly Growth. Go-to-market strategist Kyle Poyer and CFO CJ Gustafson break down how modern companies make money, covering pricing, monetization, and benchmarks in ways that make you better at your job. Tactics and playbooks for finance, product, and sales operators looking to be the CEO of their role. This is Mostly Growth.
How would you define vertical software?
I would define it as software that is purpose-built for someone doing a specific trade. And I know the word trade sounds like I'm just talking about blue collar jobs, I'm not. I'm talking about it could be for doctors, it could be for physical therapists, it could be for psychiatrists. It's for someone who has an industry specific craft or profession and they need workflows around that.
Would be contrasted with like horizontal software that can be used across multiple industries and multiple kinds of people within an industry. So a CRM provider like Salesforce is going to be a classic horizontal software player. But there are vertical specific CRMs, like there are CRMs just for the auto repair industry, for example.
Yeah, or Viva. I mean, they started with a CRM, I believe, for companies that were in the pharma industry. So, like example, you gave Salesforce. It could also be like Gusto for payroll. That's horizontal, right? It could be Bamboo for HR or HiBob. So those are horizontal softwares that try to be everything to everyone.
Now, a lot of people wrote off, I think, vertical software, even going back to like 5-10 years ago, because the TAM or the total addressable market wasn't seen as big enough to build a real venture backable company. I feel like that's starting to change. But what's your sense there? Are these venture backable companies or bootstrap companies?
I see it both ways, right? I think it also depends on the ambition of the founder behind it, because it may not be a venture backable company if they're not thinking big enough around how many products they're going to have. I do think in vertical software, you have to think multi-product from the very start, right? What I mean by that is you're not just trying to sell a CRM. Maybe you're also trying to sell payments on top of that. Maybe you're trying to start a marketplace to go along with it. So people get wrapped up in this TAM trap of they start to be like, well, okay, I think there's 7 million lawyers in the US. And if we do $100 a month, what would that be? But if you think about a company like Harvey that's selling to law firms, they're actually displacing the labor budget and they're also going to do the billing and they're going to do 10 other things on top of that. But if you just started with lawyers, it may only be 1 million lawyers in the US. You start to think, we're never going to get to 100 million with this company.
Yeah, I think that's where there's been a big change over the years, is that we've gotten more familiar with the layer cake strategy and the real LTV possibility with selling to a given company in these niches. But then AI has allowed us to actually take on work. And I think vertical AI companies have been much better about really being able to take on work that would normally be done by people, because they're able to build hyper-specific products. So even in legal, you've got Harvey, like you mentioned, you've got Legora, GCAI, Even Up. There's actually like several unicorns in this space. And before, I think people kind of wrote off legal tech as not a place where you can build a big business.
Yeah, they totally thought it was too small because the math at the outset doesn't let you think that there are enough businesses out there to serve. You forget that the renewal and retention rates are just so much higher if you focus just on what they need. And also, Kyle, a lot of these companies, their tech refresh cycles are like never. So once you get in, they're not going to rip you out.
Vertical software has really gotten hot, I think, over the last 5 years. OpenView was investing in vertical SaaS companies going back at least, more than a decade. I think one of the even early IPOs within OpenView's portfolio was a company that sold like learning management software for colleges, basically a technology platform for them to have like enroll their students and everything. And that became like a very surprisingly successful business called Instructure. When I look at verticals, the interesting thing for OpenView from an investor perspective was that we were looking for companies that had demonstrated product market fit and were really ready to scale go to market on the basis of that PMF. We often wanted to be the earliest investors post PMF because there's a de-risking event in a company's life as they're finding product market fit. Like there's a lot of the unknowns about the company go away because it's clear who the customer is, that they're seeing value, that they're retaining at high rates. Like the business is substantially de-risked. But if you wait until a company has seen product market fit and everyone knows it, the valuations go up pretty significantly. You want to be the first to find that a company is demonstrating PMF. You can invest at relatively low early stage like valuations, see a lot of upside, but also see more of a growth equity or private equity like risk profile because there's been a de-risking event that happens. Vertical software companies can demonstrate PMF much earlier from a revenue generation perspective than more horizontal software companies.
So well said. And I bet a lot of the companies you were stumbling into had A, profits. You're like, whoa, what's that dollar over there? And then B, they had CAC payback periods that were like Are you serious?
Well, they knew exactly who the target customer was. So often one of the founders would work in the industry. And so they know how to talk to these people. They know how to reach them, often like cold calling or direct mail or like events where the places to be. But there could be great word of mouth dynamics because there were not a lot of other software options in these spaces. So once you started getting some customers, those customers loved you. They told their peers, and all of a sudden you could acquire customers at a low cost, and then retention rates were insane. I mean, often we're seeing 95% annual retention rates on a logo basis.
Hey, thanks for listening. We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. If you run go-to-market, you already know the problem. Your go-to-market data is everywhere. Ads, CRMs, sales calls, marketing, spreadsheets, but you're still guessing what to do next. HockeyStack is the AI platform for modern go-to-market teams that collects all your customer data and unifies it into a single system of action. Then you deploy AI agents that prospect the right accounts, help reps close and upsell deals, improve forecast accuracy, and automate what's already working across sales and marketing. Instead of running 5-year-old processes manually, your go-to-market team finally has agents that understand your ICP, your funnel, and your buying motion, and they execute on it. That's why teams like RingCentral, Outreach, ActiveCampaign, and even Fortune 100 companies rely on HockeyStack to cut through the noise, eliminate wasted spend, and make better go-to-market decisions faster. That's HockeyStack, the AI platform that helps go-to-market teams make space to think and win. Here's a growth tax nobody talks about. Every new monetization model you ship creates a nightmare for your finance team. Add usage-based pricing? Now you're tracking consumption against commitments. Launch product bundles? That's multiple performance obligations per contract. Offer mid-cycle upgrades? Woo! Good luck reallocating revenue manually. But that's exactly where RightRev shines. RightRev is the revenue recognition engine built for companies that can't afford to let accounting slow down growth. When your RevRec is automated, your product team can ship new pricing without asking finance for permission. And your sales team can close creative deals without worrying about downstream chaos. To get up on my CFO soapbox for a sec, I love talking about creative pricing models, hybrid pricing, credits, tiered usage. But I've seen too many companies where the sales team is celebrating a huge quarter while finance is still trying to figure out how to recognize half of it. In a world where your pricing model might change 3 times next year, that flexibility is everything. If you want to scale your monetization without breaking your books, visit RightRev.com. That's RightRev.com, where modern monetization meets bulletproof accounting.
Here's a question. When was the last time you really had time to focus on growth and not chasing contract renewals, tracking shadow IT spend, or explaining rising software costs to the board? Yikes. The truth is, traditional spend management is broken. If you're still piecing together data from 5 different systems just to figure out what you're actually spending, while vendors keep on pushing those auto renewals and price hikes, my friend, I got a solution for you. That's where Anthropic comes in. Anthropic is an intelligent spend management solution that consolidates your spend data and processes into one unified offering, enabling insights and decisive action. It doesn't just show you where the problems are, it helps you solve them. From spotting hidden optimization opportunities like duplicative spend, to automating those painful procurement workflows, to giving you the best market data that turns every vendor negotiation in your favor. Anthropic combines smart insights with real human expertise to keep you ahead of the curve. And I can say firsthand because I've used them for over 2 years. Their SaaS platform helps me with price checks. It helps me keep my calendar organized of when renewals are coming up and I can actually visualize it. And let me say, it saves me more than 10 hours a week on vendor management, and we've saved a ton on renewals. I'm walking into the boardroom with a lot more confidence. Isn't it time to turn your spend management into your competitive advantage? Visit tropicapp.io/mostlymetrics. That's tropicapp.io/mostlymetrics.
Did I tell you my story about interviewing for PartsTech?
I don't know.
You're coming in to be the CFO, right? So you're like, I should probably look at these books and make sure I'm not walking into fraud or it just doesn't make any sense. And so I said, can you just send me an export? And he sent it to me. And I'm like, oh, typical founder. This guy can't export from QuickBooks correctly. He completely forgot the marketing line. And so I write back, I'm like, hey, this looks good. It looks like you don't have any marketing spend in here. And he's like, oh no, we've only spent $40,000 on marketing in the last 10 years. I was like, send me the employment contract now.
That is a little bit misleading though, because in the space with PartsTech, there were a lot of partnership opportunities. So in these vertical software plays, like there's not a lot of other companies in the tech stack. And so in a auto repair, for example, you've got a CRM that's more of like a core system of record for an auto repair shop. And so these CRMs have access to most of the market. I mean, some of it's probably greenfield, but they have access to most of the market. And your product, if it's valuable for the CRM can bring you into deals, can essentially co-sell you with their own product.
I've never seen biz dev play a bigger part in go-to-market than in vertical software. And these ecosystems are really tight-knit. Most of the people that I found working in the auto industry had only worked in the auto industry. Now, that was partially like a barrier for me. You said like as an investor, what attracted you? To give you the other side, as an operator, what attracted me to vertical software was there weren't a lot of people trying to big brain it in there. And I don't mean that pejoratively. I mean that as almost an arbitrage opportunity. So I came from companies that were doing backup and recovery software, sexy cybersecurity software. I was competing with like extremely smart people for the positions I wanted. And I was like, this is a really highly efficient company. They're going to give me a shot at a role that maybe would have been harder to get at a horizontal SaaS company because there's more competition. And there aren't all these Harvard MBAs who I'm going to have to compete with. So I think in many senses, like there are these pockets for arbitrage all around.
These are often companies that are very lean and they hire people with a lot of industry experience, but not as much like software scaling experience. And so having a few years at another software company and just being a smart person, you can go in and make a big impact. I think that's one of the reasons why the growth equity and private equity firms like Mainsail just scoop up these businesses. They're often like bootstrapped, founder owned, super lean, really great unit economics, and with a little bit of like SaaS scaling skills can take the business to, 100 million and beyond.
Couldn't agree more.
So let's talk about types of vertical software business models, right? And so we talked about like the CRM opportunity and being a system of record with your customers. What are some of the other types of vertical SaaS businesses that are most common?
Now, there are absolutely derivatives of this and combinations, but my simple mind, Kyle, buckets it into three. You have the front of the house systems, you have the back of the house systems, and then you have a way for people to transact, which usually takes the form of a marketplace.
Which one do you do first?
You have to choose either front or back. Marketplace is playing on hard mode, okay? But if you can crack the marketplace, you can then do SaaS that sells to both the back and front. It's really hard to go from SaaS to marketplace, but it's easier to go from marketplace sequencing-wise to software that serves either. I prefer the back of the house, so something like an ERP, because it's the core system of record for information that's used for decisions, and there's a lot of gravity to that information. But you can also do the front of the house if you think that you have a unique take on payments and how the customer is served.
The challenge that I see is that if you don't do back of the house, you're so dependent on the back office system. If you're the CRM, you've got all the customer data there. You're the system of record for the business, super high retention business. It is relatively easy to stack things on top of that. If you're a front office system, so maybe more of a marketing tool or a website tool for these businesses, you're a little bit easier to replace. You have to get access to the CRM and you have to send your data to the CRM. The CRM doesn't need you as much as you need it. And so you can live and die from these partners who might be friendly, open up their API, be, eager to integrate with you, and then all of a sudden are your biggest competitors.
You said that so well. You want some sort of first-party data that is critical to how the business runs and also be in a workflow that they are in every day, especially if it's the person with the budget and owns the business. That's how you get a moat.
Yeah, and so we talked to Daniel Lang at Mango Mint. With Mango Mint, they started in things like scheduling, payments with customers. They are the core system of record for a salon and spa. And now they're adding more AI tools, front office tools around marketing automation and other things. But they really started with wanting to own that kind of core system of record. I think that's often the stronger place to be long term, but it's harder to get a foothold as a system of record because companies really don't like to change off of their system of record. So if you're trying to get adoption quickly, that is a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, and you're usually fighting one of two things. The first one is we have it on pen and paper, and Beth, who's worked here for 35 years, is not going to start entering it into a computer. And then you have the other type of friction, which is, well, we have everything in this SAP server from the 1950s. And like, if we touch it, it might explode. And so that's a huge existential risk to our business to try to port it over to your new age AI ERP thingy over here.
There's a generational transition that's happening where like the kids are taking over the business and the kids want a cloud-based tool. They want a mobile app. Like they
want to see it on
are
their
familiar
phone.
with tech. Exactly.
They want to be able to see it out on a job site. So that was like a big thing I know in the construction
Kicking
industry.
Beth out of her job.
Sorry, Beth. John needs to be able to check his iPad at the construction site now. So that was something that was big for like a Procore. And we saw it at PartsTech where a lot of the inbound we would get from partners, by the way, were like the son or daughter taking over the garage and saying like, Dad, we got to change up like the way that we've been doing this. I got to have access to like the scheduling, who's coming in from like when I'm on my couch. And that's usually when the tech refresh cycle would happen.
The alternative was calling your parts suppliers and, hey, Joe, do you have this part for this 2013 car? Oh, no, you don't have it. Or, oh, I'm on hold. Let me call someone else. And like no millennial wants to be on the phone playing phone tag with their parts suppliers.
Dude, you're not getting me to make 20 calls to AutoZone a day and talking to Frank at the front counter to ask for every part and try to read him. What? Was that a 4 or an F? You're not getting me to do that. Like, I need tech.
We're building the next gen vertical software. Maybe we're trying to be a system of record because we think that's the best place to be. And we're going to go to a hyper specific niche because, you know, the richest in niches and the more niche-y, the better. Let's maybe start on the investor side. Like, if you're pitching fundraise to investors, maybe trying to get a Series A or Series B investment, what are the most important things that they're going to look for or want to see in the business?
So I'm coming from the assumption that this is a multi-product company, at least for the first metric that I'll give you, but we can go through like what's also applicable just to a company that's only launched one so far. I think it's the product attach rate, which is the total number of products you've sold. So how many SKUs you've sold divided by the number of customers, because it's also going to prove out in your retention rate, in your renewal rate, the more products you have, because it means you're across multiple workflows and therefore stickier.
The product attach rate kind of speaks to the TAM opportunity too. Like you have multiple products that are monetizable. For a lot of companies, the tendency is just throwing everything in one package. And hey, we've got the package, it's $99 a month per location. It's got the CRM, it's got marketing, it's got your website, it's got everything in it. And so you are going to have a higher, I guess, product attach rate in these kinds of businesses, but very little monetization opportunity and low TAM potential. And so I think part of this is like the attach rate of monetizable products or products that you can sell separately and make money on.
So to piggyback on that, our North Star metric retention-wise at PartsTech was what we called month one churn. So a lot of vertical SaaS companies have a free trial or it's completely free to use and they monetize you in some other way. Or maybe they pay you a subscription and there's not even a month-to-month contract with a lot of these. What we would look at is if we got 100 net new garages to purchase each month on the platform, and by the way, it was free for them to purchase, we were taking a take rate from the supplier, we would want minimally 85 to make a purchase in month 2, then 80 to make a purchase in month 3. And hopefully, if you think about like the spider chart of any sort of retention curve, you want it to even off and level off as fast as possible. And the month one churn is so important because if there are only 80,000 to 100,000 garages in the US, you could technically burn through your TAM pretty quickly. Now, we said the TAM is bigger if you sell them multiple products, but there's still only so many garages in the US.
Because also the stickiness, if you have a leaky bucket, you're not going to really be able to attach multiple products because your core customer isn't sticking around. You don't have someone to sell more stuff to. And many of the best vertical SaaS companies see extremely high retention rates. And I agree with you. A lot of these vertical SaaS companies, you're not getting the customer to make an annual commitment paid up front. These are smaller businesses. They don't have that kind of cash flow. They're also a little bit allergic to just these kinds of purchases. And so you're on a month-to-month plan. And you might have demoed the product. Maybe you even just talked to the owner on the phone, but like this isn't a super tech savvy buyer in a lot of cases. And so you've got to convince them in month 1 to implement the product, which it's like hard to get them to prioritize that, and then implement it to a point where they're actually using it in their operations. And that is another leap because that is a hard kind of change to happen in a lot of these companies.
The adoption curve, like it's something you really have to handhold on the customer success side of things, and you got to make it kind of brainless for them to get at least some quick wins with it. Because let's say I'm a gym owner and I make money by training people. You can't make it so I have to spend 3 hours a week for the first month getting up and ready on mind body. Like, I'm going to go back really quickly to using pen and paper if I have somebody waiting there who needs to sign up for a membership or is waiting for me to train them. Like, there's a very small window where you have my concentration.
Yeah, that window is very short. And that's where Mengeman, as we talked about earlier, they do the implementation during a trial process itself with the idea that if they can't get the customer to implement, that customer is not going to stick around anyway. And so they want to focus the sales conversation on implementation. And then once someone's set up and running and like the product, they're going to keep paying for it afterwards. I do think this kind of thing that you alluded to is an important thing from an investor standpoint, this burning through your TAM concept. And the rationale there is that, so let's say you have 100,000 businesses. The theoretical TAM for the market is $1 billion. If you're churning 20% of your new customers a month, you have to basically acquire the entire market to then even hit like a couple $100 million in revenue, because you'll have had so many other people that have tried the product and left. There's a theoretical, $1 billion TAM, but the actual addressable market based on your metrics is way lower if churn is high.
We actually would cover this metric, and we had a waterfall in every board meeting. We would pull it up to say, what is our hard burn that we've actually gone through? And it was the percentage of the market who had tried us, paid, and actually churned. Not just like tried us and not purchased like after 2 months or something, like the ones who weren't satisfied and left. We had to keep an eye on that.
Some of these can come back, but a lot of them won't. If they've tried you once, like you kind of lost them for a while. And I think that the other thing just we're sharing for tech companies that sell to other tech companies, your target audience is often growing, or there's like a lot of new ones entering the market every year. And so you can go, find the winners of the next generation. For many of these vertical SaaS companies, their end customers stick around for decades. Some of them go out of business, but like they stick around for a while, and there's not a ton of new companies opening up or new businesses opening up in these spaces.
Garages in the US, independently owned auto body shops, were growing at 1.5% per year. We wanted to be growing revenue over 100% per year, Kyle. We have 50% more garages this year in the US. Like, that just doesn't happen.
That's where I think, to me, another metric that I would look at from an investor perspective is the ability to win deals against competitors. So essentially like ripping and replacing from legacy competition. And so the best opportunities, this market's big enough with that there are known software companies that ideally were bought by private equity years ago that have gotten to at least 100 million. If there are these companies and you're consistently taking their customers and winning against them, that tells me that you're positioned to essentially be the next gen version of them.
Yeah. There were a lot of those big players in the auto industry, like a CDK or Reynolds and Reynolds, these companies that have been around since the dawn of the internet, and we're selling like on-prem software. If you can eat into those companies and reliably show that you're a better product and have a high win rate, investors look on that really favorably, because then it's not just on getting people who have never tried tech before. It's going after and displacing existing customers.
Exactly. Because a lot of these businesses have, like we said, 90% plus retention. And so if you're able to steal their customers, that means there's really is something that is like substantially better than what they're doing. It's not like an interesting marketing wedge or a channel that allows you to tap into some greenfield. Like, you're doing the hard work of displacing legacy competitors.
Well said.
Any other metrics that you think are important?
I like gross profit per location. So I know Toast tracks this because they have the POS system, right? They also have a number of other software products that they'll sell into a restaurant. They also even offer payroll services now. So they have like 10 different products that they can sell. They look at their customers on a per location basis, because you could have a franchise that's using Toast everywhere. What's the gross profit across all of our different products that we're making? And I think that's actually a better measure, Kyle. And you can correct me if you think I'm wrong, than just ARPU, average revenue per user. You're looking at what's the gross profit after I take into consideration payment fees and all my cost of goods sold that I'm making on a per location basis.
Well, I think revenue is really tricky in vertical software because a lot of the opportunity is payments, which is revenue, or there's GMV there, but much lower profitability. You've also got fintech. You've got a variety of different products that are software and non-software. You might even meet some vertical software companies even essentially act like ad agencies or marketing agencies for their customers. They're doing some services where their AI product has low margins because it's like an AI receptionist. Gross profit margin is a nice way of basically unifying all of those different types of products to figure out what really matters.
Kyle, from your perspective, did vertical SaaS have its moment over the last 3 to 5 years and there's no more arbitrage left? I always joke with my friend who works at PSG, but I'm like, hey, what are you doing? Oh, you're in Austin. Are you looking for vertical SaaS arbitrage? He's like, it's really hard these days to find these companies. A lot of these founders, they're like, you're the 5th person who's come to see us this week. Do you still think it's an untapped opportunity from either working at one of these companies or investing in one of them?
It's not. You used to be able to find these companies that maybe got to 10 million in revenue and they bootstrap there and they've got like 5 employees and no one knows about them, but like somehow you heard about them and you can be the one that buys out the business. From a growth equity or PE standpoint, there's not that many of those left, if any. I mean, there's just so much better data on these companies and so many firms trying to go after the opportunity. I think vertical SaaS had its moment. It is super competitive now, very hard to make money as an investor in that space. The next opportunity is going to be vertical AI. And to me, that's potentially much larger TAM. That's what's going to be fascinating because I think the debate is, are vertical AI companies going to be AI companies built by people that have that vertical experience, or are they going to be people that are really sharp with building AI products? If you look at like a legal tech, for instance, you actually got some winners coming from both backgrounds. And we're going to see who can take that prize.
We'll do an episode maybe later in the year on that.
Whoops, did I just spill my coffee? Nope, I'm perfect. It's time for business blunders.
All right, so my business blunder is, imagine this scenario, CJ.
Okay.
You're Salesforce. You're getting a $5.6 billion deal from the Army. That is a big ass deal. And your stock price drops by more than 10% because of the SaaS sell-off. Can you imagine?
But like the Army's going to pay you too. Like it's not like you got to worry about collecting. It's the government, right?
How many other deals are there this size? If you compare that to like the revenue, that's huge.
Dude, it's tough out there to be a CRM. Bring your helmet to work.
It's not a Salesforce specific thing. I'll just say that clearly a lot of SaaS companies have been impacted by the SaaS sell-off, or like, I don't even know which wave of SaaS sell-off to call it. I'm just imagining the internal dynamics of such a big celebration around that win, only for the market to have a totally different reaction.
They make $50 billion a year in revenue, right? We covered that, around $50 billion a year. And they're trading at like 3x, 3.5x forward revenue. Like, you really think they're all going to go away and people are going to vibe code a CRM and make it SOC 2 compliant? This isn't investment advice, but damn. I have one quick business blunder. So Anthropic, it's probably ran by now. They have 4 killer ads for the Super Bowl and they're all throwing shade at ChatGPT for throwing ads into the workflow. It's hilarious. They have these actors who reply back, like the guy is working out with what is an AI person, representative of ChatGPT, and he's like, I want to get ripped in 3 months and put on 40 pounds of muscle and look like a bodybuilder. And he's like, perfect. That is a completely reasonable goal, blah, 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 blah. But then like halfway through, he's like, you should also check out these heel insoles to make you 3 inches taller.
Try Step Boost Max, the insoles that add 1 vertical inch of height and help short kings stand tall.
And then there's another ad where it's this boy asking like, I need a better relationship with my mom. Like, what do you think? And it starts to walk them through some like canned advice. And then it's like, and if you want to meet 50-year-old cougars, go to blah, 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 blah.
Find emotional connection with other older women on Golden Encounters, the mature dating site that connects sensitive cubs with roaring cougars.
Whatever OpenAI comes back with, it's just going to be not as good. But Sam Altman, he writes like this dissertation on like why the ads are wrong and how they're misplaced. And the top comment on it, like the guy got it so right. It's Nikita Beer, who's pretty funny. He just said, comms advice. Never respond to playful humor with an essay. Just say, damn, they cooked us, or make a joke about them, which I think is like the business blunder. If you get cooked, just say it. Don't try to come back with some sort of like educational rhetoric.
I would actually go with a different business blunder in this situation. I think Anthropic Yeah, great job. They had some nice PR. They threw some shade against ChatGPT, but I think they said they're not going to do ads in Claude forever. And when we went through the market opportunity, the revenue opportunity associated with ads is huge. And I get that Anthropic is in the B2B lane, the API business, an elevated brand perception, but there's a way that Anthropic could do ads that could probably double their business without turning off their customers. It would just be a better way of doing ads. And I think that they're going to look back at this and regret that this became their pitch against ChatGPT. Like, there's so many other things that could be their reason why you should choose Anthropic's products. Like, no ads shouldn't be the differentiator.
It's a really tough thing to do, to be like, we're going to carve out potentially the best business model in the world and say we're not going to do it now. But here's a funny commercial.
By the way, our reason why we're better is we don't do ads. It's like, no, you have actually like 10 other reasons why you're better that customers care about.
Well said.
Mostly Growth is a Mostly Media production. Executive produced by Ben Hillman. That's me. Additional production by Steve Sarasoli. Nothing said on this podcast is intended to be business or investment advice. It's the sole opinion of CJ, Kyle, and Ben. Just some guys who love talking growth. Mostly. If you like this podcast, hit subscribe and give it 5 stars. It only takes like 2 seconds and our algorithm overlords love it. Drink water, call your mom, and have a good day.